You're listening to the Overfunctioning Podcast, Zac and Alex's Movie Reviews, connecting leadership concepts and movies.
So, welcome to this week's ZAMR, that is Zac and Alex's Movie Review. I'm Zac.
And I'm Alex.
And we welcome you to our newest edition, where we are reviewing a 1973 drama.
72.
72. Excuse my mistake.
The Godfather.
Oh, that's a classic.
Yeah, and so, yes, once again, it is 1972. A lot of people have seen this. We've done a couple reviews now. We did Hacksaw Ridge.
Yeah.
And Fences, which is a bit more obscure.
It was very much more a play than a movie.
Yes. Anyway, so we thought it might be good to do a movie that maybe people have seen before. And it's been around long enough that people might be able to come to some sort of understanding.
And neither of us had seen it before, and it's widely regarded as a classic.
Yeah, as said by the American Film Institute. In case you don't know what it is.
Yeah, tell us, Alex.
The Godfather is a violent and chilling portrait of the Sicilian family's struggle to stay in power in a post-war America of corruption, deceit, and betrayal. When I say the Sicilian, we're talking about Marlon Brando's Corleone family. And he is the Don of this family. So, anyways. Can you tell us a little bit more about it, Zac?
Yeah, so the thing that this movie basically portrays is a family, the Corleone family, and it's basically documenting their strife with the other Italian mob families, of which there are 5 and they are one.
Yes.
And they're actually the most powerful. And by the end, you see him having slaughtered. Spoiler alert, because there's 2 things we always provide. It's spoilers and as much insight as we can draw into family systems theory.
Yes, or bone systems theory, leadership stuff,
Yeah. And so by the end of it, you see 5 of the family heads dead.
Well, I guess so. 5.
Yeah,
all 5.
Yeah,
okay.
all 5.
Okay, cool. So, and I succinctly, I don't know if you parted this down into any parts of the movie. I put it into 8 succinct parts, in which we are not going to go over. If you could just tell us, Zac, maybe about how the speed of the movie went.
So, what was that one movie that we watched recently that we just absolutely loved? The one with the white and the snow and the polar bear and the...
the one with Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
It was so memorable. So memorable.
To a point we can't even remember what the name of it is. But
this was better than that, but it watched like a book.
Yeah, there was... Well, it's kind of like classic 70s movies.
Yeah.
So it reminded me of those types of movies because they didn't cut out... So the car drives away and they take seconds of you to watch the car drive away. So they don't just the car's driving away, let's cut to the next scene. So they did a lot of that, and so that's kind of standard.
Yeah, and the emotional reactions that you see, too, from people just seem over-dramatized, and when movies and television nowadays just portray everything as very logical, you need to see why they're being angry or see why and they go through 3 emotions in one short monologue. It's just sort of hard to follow, at least it was for me.
Yeah. So, and we're dealing with the mob, so that doesn't really help out, too, when it comes to their feelings, because there's about 3 feelings they have.
Violence, murder, and betrayal.
Well, there was some crying involved.
Yeah.
And anger.
Household abuse.
Yeah, I was trying to think. Well, just from the men in the family, they were usually angry.
So we'll talk about that. The movie primarily followed Michael, who takes over by the end of his movie his father's position as the head of the family. And originally he is positioned as the son who was not going to follow in his father's footsteps. He had gone to war, he had tried to do what's right by his own words, and by the end of the movie, he has stepped into his father's role after having murdered the men who tried to kill his father.
Yes, not him himself, he did not, but he did call the hits to make them all die. He didn't go around and shooting them. Well, he did shoot some people, I guess. But in the end, he didn't shoot the other four
In
people.
the end, he's just the blameless head, right?
Yeah.
But so to my point, the movie mainly follows him.
Yeah.
But what you see predominantly is it actually following the male characters of the family, and I thought that was interesting, especially when the only female roles that you have, for the most part, are Michael's 2 wives.
Yes.
And his younger sister. Was she younger?
I don't know.
Yeah.
She's annoying. That's all.
Yeah. Her getting abused by her husband.
Yeah, that's not.
Who, of course, I'm having trouble following this, so I'm Googling on the wiki. And I find out that supposedly the Barzoni family had leveraged Carlos to abuse her to entice Sonny into attacking him so that he would have reason to murder. So, I don't know if I saw that in the movie.
I didn't see that in the movie.
Yeah, but maybe it was something that from the book didn't translate well to the movie. I don't know.
Yeah, the women, they're just wives, and weren't supposed to be part of the business. And in particular, let's go down this train here for a second. So there was one woman we talked about at the end. So his sister, and I don't remember what her name was, she was pretty much a mess the entire movie. Like, there's a wedding in the beginning, and I think she was happy maybe. But then throughout, she had a baby who cried, like, in every scene, and the baby, like, never grew up.
I'm not sure if it was her baby, but there was always a crying baby.
I like to think that it was her baby, and it just stayed the same age.
The perpetual babe.
They just forgot. And then, so she might have been happy then, but then she was like, super upset. At one point, she was throwing around like plates, and then another one at the end, she was like mad at her brother. Obviously, her brother Michael ended up killing her husband, who was, I don't know, beating her, and ended up putting the hit that killed her brother. So whatever. But this led me to believe, like, started making me think about that family system in itself. So the anxiety that is carried. Now we're going next level on this one. So
we're really reading into this.
Yeah. I'm trying my best here. So, so the men in the family, predominantly, Michael was supposed to stay out of it. The Don, who was in charge, was a pretty calm guy. It seemed like he settled into his role. He didn't seem really like, he's pretty level-headed throughout.
Yeah, he was not very reactionary.
No, he cried a lot, and actually, not a lot, but he cried more than any other guy in the movie. And then their other son, Sonny, was like super violent. Like, he just like got angry really fast. And they had like another son who was like blonde, who's a lawyer.
The one they adopted.
Yeah. Anyways, it seemed to me that all the guys, they pretty much had like, they were either angry or just chill. And I don't know if chill is really a word. Maybe it was like this buildup of anxiety that had to pass somewhere. So maybe it passed to the women. I don't know. And maybe that's where, like, I'm just trying to figure out what. Now, obviously, we only saw a sister like every once in a while. But I feel like every time we saw a sister, she was freaking out in some way, like lashing out in an anxietal way. What say you about this lady?
I would say that it's well deserved because I saw two compartments in that family. I saw the family and I saw the business. And there was a scene in the movie where they're at the dinner table and they're talking about business, and this is where Sonny is in charge of the family. And Sonny says, we don't talk about business in front of the family, or that maybe not in front of the family, but at the dinner table. And that was interesting if you think about the fact that where is her voice? She's not able to talk to him about the biggest part of his life, you would imagine.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, their personal relationship is on the rocks because he's cheating on her with one
I forgot about her.
or more women.
Yeah, well, she actually did say something. I don't know if you remember that scene. She said something about like not talking about business in front of the kids.
Yeah, that was right at the dinner table, right before.
And then right before he said
that.
Which was interesting. So like she was saying something about it. Now this is Sonny's wife. This isn't the sister though.
Oh, you're right. You're right. You're
Yeah,
right.
yeah. But still, regardless.
But that's a core value of that family, though, is their business is the mob stuff, which they talk about. It's the respectable crime. It's the gambling. It's not drugs.
Yeah.
The big pinch of the movie, and I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, everything else was okay.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden their convictions came through to where they were convicted on, we'll do gambling. What they say? Gambling, women, and what was the other? They had like three things that they had their hands in: gambling, women, and do you remember the other one?
No, I don't remember the other one.
Anyways, it
Probably
was
bribes.
some other debauch. I don't know, but
Yeah. No, but that's something I want to point out though is the thing that I tried to pull out of this movie is people have this fear of becoming like their mother or their father, right? Like that's the classic like teenage / young adult like
yeah,
fear that's portrayed in the media is the phrase I don't want to become like my father or I don't want to become like my mother. And you see that and it got me to thinking, well, why do we see people becoming like their fathers and their mothers? And there's two things that I came to. And one is that you're going to learn to respond emotionally. You're learning to react in the same way. And that's often the vice that people don't want to portray. If your father responds with alcoholism, then you're going to see that very negatively. And while you're learning how to cope with alcohol just by watching him, you're also going to, at least as the media portrays, hate him for that. And then the second thing, so the first is you learn how they react. And the second, I'm hoping you'll shoot this down. The second is you're going to share the same convictions, regardless of whether you shoot them down in your youth or not. So many of your convictions, especially the unexamined ones, are just what your parents have taught you. And some of the big ones that I got is you can't be a man if you don't spend time with your family.
Yep,
That's
I wrote that
something
down
the
too.
original Don said. Don't talk business at the table. That is this separation, this protection of the family from the dirty work that they have to do to provide. And then the last one is the Big Don, Vito, is at the table with the bosses when he figures out that when he's trying to
bring peace.
Trying to bring peace, the peace summit, and he says, "I want to keep it respectable. I want to control it as a business. I will not sell it to school or children." That's what this guy says in response to Vito saying, "I won't sell drugs." Vito outright says, "No, let's not have that." And this guy comes in and says, "But it's respectable, but it's okay." And I think it's interesting that you see this moral response to organized crime and then someone justifying it. But I think that still falls in line with this conviction of we're doing bad things, but it's okay because bad people are doing it, and we're doing it for the good of our family.
Yeah, that whole shared convictions, I think that's pretty clear here. I don't know. I don't know if the movie actually did a good job of it though. So Michael in the beginning, he was like, when he's talking to his wife to be, I guess, Kay, I think her name was.
Yeah,
something like that.
His white wife.
Yes. The other one was Greek, Italian.
Yeah, his American wife and his she wasn't Greek, but she looked Greek, I think was their point. I'm pretty sure she was Italian, but I'm not positive.
I don't know. Anyways, but in the beginning of the movie, he said, "I'm not like my family," and then it just kind of simmers down that he was like a war hero, and like even his dad didn't want him in the business. So at one point, though, I don't ever remember it being like something happened, and then he was like, "Oh my gosh, I guess I'm gonna be part of this family now."
It's when his dad was taken out of the picture, actually. So examine that. It's when his father was removed from the system
because he got shot.
Someone had to fill that role, and at first it was Sonny, but Sonny wasn't making good decisions, and so people were undermining Sonny the whole way, as he should have been. He was responding with violence to all these other gangs, perpetuating violence, and so eventually Michael steps in, wrongly, I would say, and agrees to perpetrate violence against the police chief and the guy who they believe orchestrated the assassination of his father to kill them, and then, of course, runs to hide in Italy.
Yeah. And then when Vito, the dad, finds out that he is killed, when Michael's done this, he actually gets upset then.
When who's killed?
When Michael kills those two.
Yeah.
And then
when Michael killed the police chief and the guy who
he actually
organized...
gets upset by that. And because he didn't want him to step into that role.
And you see them drop tidbits throughout the movie about how the family is proud of Michael. This is before he commits the murder, how his father's proud. And you hear them echo that at the end of the movie. And it's the final nail kind of goes into that coffin when the father says, I didn't ever want this for you. I never expected this of my youngest child. And that's interesting because he had, in the breath before that, said, this is something I had to do. This is what was right for the family. This was good, but I didn't want that for you. And I think that's funny that he's not leading a life that he wants his son to imitate.
Yeah. I don't know. Do you think the book the movie? Do you think the movie kind of pieced that together real well? I just felt like it was like I needed a little bit more of, and I don't know if it's because Michael just had such a straight pan face or something. Like he didn't seem upset in some ways, or didn't show his anger until after he almost became
and
the Don.
I'll say wholeheartedly, I'm not sure I grasped all of this movie because while it wasn't a fast-paced movie, there was quick, thickly accented dialogue with many moving characters that identities weren't easily portrayed, along with names to make them identifiable.
Yes, they all kind of look the same because they all wore vests with white shirts.
It's just such a dull outfit.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you're trying to piece together identifying characteristics, and suddenly they're off screen, and you have 3 more Italian men in their place. So, but all that to say is, I don't think that they did a good job portraying that, but I think that if you read into his Italian wife, his first wife dying, I imagine that what moved him, what was the catalyst for him stepping into the Don position, was if I don't take control to protect my family, no one will. The irony being, if he wasn't in the mob scene to begin with, his family probably would not be in danger.
Yeah, so the chronic that he's been living with his entire life just became acute when his wife got blown up in a car, and he decided to do something about it, but only still made it more chronic.
I mean, he made it acute by murdering everyone else who posed a threat to his father.
Oh, yeah.
Not to say that they won't be filled. Because in that family system, right, these other family systems, they're now needing to replace those heads of the family.
Yeah, so we're just going to, it's round and round we go. But to the drugs, we say no.
Oh, no.
Sir, do you have any other inklings of leadership systems theory? I mean, I think we could sit here and both talk about the leaders of these families as, I mean, just on a morality level and on a scale of leadership. Geez, are they good leaders?
I would say that the Godfather is the archetype of a forced reactionary leader, if that makes sense. Everything he does feels justified as if he had no other choice, and it's as if he's doing it in this cold passion, right? Like it's not in this hot rage. It's just cold, calm logic, but it's just so skewed.
Yeah, okay. I can deal with that because he did have convictions. They weren't really the best convictions, but he still had them. So,
yeah.
And then I always look at to see if did the conviction match up with the actions and the words, and that's where I'm gonna get a little bit back, where I'm thinking that's not exactly where it needs to be, because if he didn't want his youngest son to go into that, then he didn't really match his convictions with his actions and words. And you can't really control somebody, right? You can't do that. Like you can't just. Well, I don't know. Part of me thinks like if he would have told his son, "You are not doing this, and I will kill you if you decide to." Like I guess he could have gone that direction, but.
I also don't think he was that invested in his son not following in his footsteps. I think it was just something he had hoped for him, but not something that he cared about.
Yeah. Interesting. Any other leadership systems theory nuggets?
Just my final thought is.
I'm going to final thoughts.
Final thought: when I think of masculinity as portrayed by this movie, and I'm not saying masculinity in a socio-political sense, but in a like, how does a boy know when he's a man? Like, it's interesting because their definition of that is going to be their father, and they're going to try to emulate that. And what you end up with at the end of the movie is Michael being a younger version of his father. You just see him sitting there, and you seeing him. He loses all of the emotion that he has, right?
Yeah.
He just becomes just this stone-cold, stone-faced, blank slate, and he just starts enacting his version of justice.
Yeah, he became his father. He shared his convictions, and now he's responding the same way.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, he basically has become his father based off of what he learned from his father, and he's reacted the same way. He has the same convictions. He didn't say any different that he had any different convictions. In fact, well, he might have, I don't know. I guess we never saw the Don lie to his wife because she was dead. Spoiler. Yeah, I mean, even at the end, he lied to his wife. So that's.
And you could see that she knew.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Lied straight to her face.
I think, needless to say, the movie was slow. And I think I've yawned like 3 or 4 times during this podcast because I'm trying to like catch up. I need some coffee. But I think that's going to lead us down to the row of ratings, sir.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you think we're ready?
I think we're ready.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, we could. I think I could keep talking as if like a car is going by, and we could cut this part out, but we're just going to leave it just like the movie.
We're just going to leave it, and you guys are going to sit there listening and wondering if The Godfather is actually like this. And at some parts it is.
I would say a lot of parts it is.
And so we're about to jump over to Priscilla's rating.
Oh,
but
Pricilla.
I do want to let everyone know, this is a PSA, Pricilla did fall asleep through the middle third. So there is a gap in her knowledge of the movie as she rates this.
Yes, yeah, that's true. What did she say to you?
I saw her scratch her hindquarter and then just give a little paw at her nose, which I don't know if she was passing or if it was like a 2 out of 5. And for those of you who can't see, just rubbing the nose twice, I think 2 out of 5.
Is she wait? Is she going off her regular system of barks, woofs, and sniffs?
I don't know. She's looking a little cold. I would guess that translates to a sniff, a bark, and no woofs.
Sniff and bark. I mean, at one point I did look over and she looked at me and then went back to licking her stomach. She's got like a little rash going on right now.
Gross.
And so, I mean, I equate the rash that she would rather lick her rash than watch the movie as like a sniff. So I think she was somewhere between a sniff and a bark.
No, yeah, for sure.
Somewhere between a sniff and a bark.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now
I'll give my rating. I am sure that this movie was a classic and the epitome of film
in the day
in 1972. And I feel that with the rapid pacing of modern movies, I just remember watching, I think it was the second Star Trek, and seeing like 3 major thematic climaxes and 2 minor, and it was just like an adrenaline rush the entire time. And sitting here and watching this.
Wait, the modern Star Trek.
The Star Trek movies.
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
I want to make sure, because if you go to back the old ones, I'm sure we could be comparable.
I'm sure we could figure out the transition of modern film, but that is to say, it was very, very slow, and I think I'd have preferred reading a book over watching this movie just because it was hard to follow. Maybe my rating would have changed if I had read the book.
Do you think? I just wonder because we just talked about this earlier today when we watched Ender's. If you've read Ender's Game and then if you watch the movie, the difference between reading the Ender's Game and watching the movie, or a lot of different books, is that they let you inside the head of people, and then it helps you understand and be more emotional when you watch it. So I wonder. In this case, it would have been the exact same kind of experience.
I didn't understand many of the driving forces of the Dawn. I didn't understand the driving forces of Carlo as he beat his wife. I read that it was because he felt neglected from power and all that. But like a lot of this didn't convey well to what I saw. And so the rating I'm going to give is a 4.5, and let me explain that. My mom always said, families who eat together don't do drugs together. And so that actually might have been my sister. I'm not quite sure. But I think this movie portrays that well.
Oh, good. Speaking of your mom, she's going to be on the next chat session. So,
oh, yeah. So people should check that out.
There
and
you go.
Since we're putting in plugs already before you give your review, we'll actually be watching Star Wars next month's ZAMR, I believe. So
no, that's the newest Star Wars coming out, right?
New Star Wars.
Okay, yeah.
So this will be hot and fresh and filled with spoilers.
Yeah, exactly. So you might not want to listen to that one right away if you haven't watched it.
No, definitely do.
Also, if you have any opinions on what we should watch next, I personally would like to watch in our January section something called The Post. It's going to be a new movie coming out. I think it's about newspapers, but I like to think about it as like a post in a fence. And we've done Fences already.
We watched Fences with Denzel Washington. Play format, we highly recommend. You listen to our podcast episode of it.
So why don't we do The Post, and then we can find a movie called The Gate. Except for The Gate is like a crappy horror movie.
That's a big NO on my
Anyway,
part.
so let's go to my rating then.
So what's your rating?
You know, Michael did change through the movie.
He
and
did.
That's one of the things that I do look for.
That's all you look for.
You know, he was kind of this, war hero. So he did change through the movie. His guide, I guess, would be his father.
Yeah.
He basically turned into his father. So there was a change of character. So I did appreciate that.
Yeah.
Even though it was more of a tragedy and not a comedy, of course.
Classic.
And with that, I'm going to give it a 2.2 out of 5.
Okay.
Yeah,
so we're relatively comparable.
Yeah, pretty comparable. I wanted to like it. Like, knowing other people who like it, I really wanted to like it. And halfway through, actually, I think early in the movie, I was like, oh, I could give this like a 3-something. And then it just started, going down that hill.
Yeah, it was
into sadness.
It was
and misunderstanding.
It was a movie I appreciate because of the value that it represents.
Yeah, I think once I got to like part 3 out of 8 parts that I've written down here, I was at a 2.2.
It looks like you had time to write a book during all of the cutaways.
Exactly. Yeah. So with that, I am shocked that we've gotten 28 minutes out of this podcast.
It might not have been worth it. Yeah, hopefully it was.
Well, you can check us out on the Overfunctioning Leadership Podcast. We do talk about leadership stuff, and I do interviews at times. And we also have a Brumble out there about why we have an elephant as our mascot.
Brumbles are brain rumbles, and they air every 5th Tuesday. So with that, we'd like to close out and thank you for listening to this month's ZAMR.
You're very proper.
I know, thank you. And I'm Zach.
I feel like you're going stonewalled. Are you turning into Michael or turning into the Don right at the end of this podcast?
Let me give you an offer. You can't refuse. As I butcher that.
You need to sound like you've smoked a lot.
I need to pull a Brando and actually put a cotton ball in your mouth. That's how he did that.
Like a giant wad. Are you?
Yeah.
Is that you looked
That's
that up?
legitimate. Yeah.
Okay.
I asked why I talked funny. And
oh boy. Anyways, well, with that, once again, I am Alex,
and I'm Zach.
And we'll check you out next time.
Thanks.
See ya.
Bye.
How did we get that much time out of it?
I have no idea.
Oh, because I was looking at like 16 minutes. I'm like, we're done.